I arrived at my grandson's baptism wearing the best suit I owned, the one my late wife bought me 15 years ago. I parked my old sanitation truck between rows of Mercedes and BMWs. Inside were 150 guests. I had paid $22,000 for everything: the venue, the food, even the gown on my grandson's body. My daughter stopped me at the church doors, glanced at my boots, then whispered, "Dad, you don't really belong here. People are watching. Maybe it's better if you go. We'll talk later." At 72, standing there in front of everyone, I realized I wasn't her father anymore. I was just a wallet. So I swallowed. My pride walked back to my truck and made one phone call. 20 minutes later, their perfect day began to collapse. Welcome to Dadrevenge. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to watch this video. Before we continue, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now where you are. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Also, please note this story contains fictionalized elements added for entertainment and perspective. Any similarity to actual people or settings is coincidental. What matters here is the message I'm sharing with you. I pulled up to my grandson's baptism in my work truck, the one with Hayes Sanitation Services, painted across both doors in bold green letters. Not exactly subtle. I parked it between a silver Mercedes and a black BMW in the lot of Grace Community Church, and I could already feel the stares. 72 years old and I was nervous. Can you believe that I'd faced down angry customers, equipment failures, and 40 years of running a business, but walking into my own grandson's baptism had my hands shaking. I looked down at my suit. Charcoal gray, single-breasted. Grace bought it for me 15 years ago, back when we celebrated our 30th anniversary at that little Italian place downtown. I remember her smoothing down the lapels, smiling up at me. "You look distinguished, Matthew," she'd said. Distinguished. I tried to hold on to that word as I grabbed the small gift bag from the passenger seat, a silver rattle I'd picked out myself. The church sat in one of those neighborhoods where every lawn looked like it had been manicured with nail scissors. Meridian Kessler, they called it. The kind of place where people checked what you drove before they decided whether you were worth talking to. Through the tall windows, I could see the crowd inside. 150 people, Amanda had said. I didn't recognize a single car in this parking lot. I walked toward the entrance, gift bag in hand, trying not to think about the truck behind me. The logo, the dented bumper, the mud on the wheel wells from this morning's depot run. The sanctuary doors were propped open, and I could see them, all those people in their Sunday finest, mingling, laughing. Flower arrangements taller than I was. Everything pristine and perfect. And there near the entrance, I saw Amanda. My daughter looked just like her mother used to on Sundays. Hair done up, cream-colored dress pearls at her neck. Beautiful. For a moment, my chest tightened with pride. Then she saw me. The smile vanished from her face so fast, you'd think I'd walked in covered in garbage. She cut through the crowd, quickly, heels clicking on the marble floor, and reached me before I could take another step inside. "Dad." Her voice was low, controlled. "What are you doing here?" The question hit me like a slap. "It's Mason's baptism, sweetheart. I'm his grandfather. I know that, but..." She glanced back over her shoulder. Jason was there laughing with a group of men in expensive suits. None of them were looking our way, but Amanda was clearly aware of them. "These are Jason's business partners. Important people. We didn't think you'd actually come." Didn't think I'd come. To my own grandson's baptism. I could see Mason through the doorway, 6 months old, in someone's arms, wearing a christening gown that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. That gown, I'd paid for it. $1,200 for a piece of white fabric a baby would wear for an hour. "Where do I sit?" I asked. Amanda finally looked at me. Really looked at me. Her eyes moved from my 15-year-old suit to my work boots, cleaned, but still work boots, and then past me to where my truck sat among the luxury cars. "Dad, maybe. Maybe it's better if you just go home. We'll send you photos. The whispers started then. I could feel them more than hear them. 150 people who'd been laughing and chatting suddenly had something more interesting to look at. The man in the old suit, the garbage truck in the parking lot. Yeah, that's his truck. I heard he works in sanitation. Amanda must be mortified. I stood there 72 years old, holding a gift for a grandson I'd paid $22,000 to celebrate. And my own daughter was telling me I didn't belong. Amanda's voice softened, but not in a good way. In that way, people use when they're trying to let you down easy. We really appreciate everything you've done, Dad. The venue, the catering, everything. But you'd be uncomfortable here. These aren't your kind of people. Not my kind of people. I looked past her one more time. Through those doors, I could see the Riverside Events Center's fancy entryway, the champagne fountain being set up for the reception, the ice sculptures. $22,000 worth of not my kind of people. Thanks for the check, Dad, Amanda said quietly. You should go. I could have argued. Could have pushed past her and walked into that church. Could have sat in a back pew and watched my grandson get baptized. But you don't make a scene in church. You don't embarrass your family even when they're embarrassing you. So I did what she asked. I turned around, walked back through that lobby with my spine straight past the whispers, past the stairs, past Jason, who finally noticed me leaving and gave this little smirk like he'd won something. My truck looked exactly like what it was, a working man's vehicle in a parking lot full of status symbols. I got in, set the gift bag on the passenger seat, and sat there for a moment. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I didn't cry. I don't do that much anymore, not since Grace. Didn't curse, though Lord knows I wanted to. I just started the engine and pulled out of that parking lot. And somewhere on that 20-minute drive home, past the nice neighborhoods, past the manicured lawns, back toward my side of town, where people didn't care what you drove or where you worked, something inside me shifted. I'd spent 40 years building Hayes Sanitation from nothing. A single garbage truck and a dream turned into 5 locations, 42 trucks, and enough contracts to keep 3 counties clean. I'd raised Amanda alone after Grace died, working 60-hour weeks so she could have private school, college, everything she wanted. I'd written that $22,000 check without a second thought because she asked me to. And this was how she saw me. As an embarrassment. As someone who didn't fit her new world. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my modest paid-off 2-bedroom house on the south side, I'd made a decision. If Amanda wanted to treat me like an ATM, like a checkbook with a pulse, like I existed, only to fund her perfect life, then fine. This ATM was about to shut down. The house looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. Quiet. Empty. Grace's rose bushes blooming pink and white along the back fence like she'd planted them just yesterday instead of 20 years ago. I sat in the truck for a minute after I pulled into the driveway, engine still running, hands still gripping the wheel. The neighbor's dog barked somewhere down the street. A kid rode past on a bicycle. Normal Saturday afternoon in my neighborhood, the kind where people waved at each other and knew your name. Not like that parking lot full of German luxury cars and people who looked at you like you were dirt on their shoes. I killed the engine and went inside. The living room hit me first the way it always did. Grace everywhere. Our wedding photo on the mantle. That picture from our 25th anniversary. Her in that blue dress, she loved me in the same gray suit I'd worn today. She was smiling that smile that could light up a room. I stood there looking at her, and I could almost hear her voice. Treat everyone with dignity, Matthew. No matter who they are or what they do. She'd lived by that. Welcomed everyone into our home like they were family. The garbage men, the lawyers, didn't matter to her. Grace saw people, not their bank accounts. I tried, honey, I said to the photo. But she doesn't see it that way. I walked down the hall to the spare bedroom I used as an office. Grace's old desk sat against the wall, the one she'd used to balance our checkbook and write Christmas cards every year. I kept it exactly as she'd left it. Her reading glasses were still in the drawer. I opened the filing cabinet, the one labeled in my handwriting, and pulled out the folder marked Amanda Financial Documents. Inside was everything. Every piece of paper that showed how much I'd given, how much I'd built, how much I'd provided. I spread it all out on the desk. The deed to the house in Broad Ripple. The nice neighborhood where Amanda and Jason lived. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, neighborhood pool. I'd bought it as a wedding gift 8 years ago. Told Amanda it was hers. But I'd never signed the deed over. It was still in my name. Had been the whole time. The Lexus lease agreement. $825 a month automatically deducted from my business account. Jason drove that car like he owned it. He didn't own a damn thing. The lease for his office space downtown. That fancy building on Massachusetts Avenue where he held his business meetings with his investors. I owned that building. Bought it 12 years ago as a rental property. Jason's rent, I'd been paying it myself, letting him think his business was covering it. I sat back in Grace's chair and stared at the papers. I owned everything. The house they slept in, the car he drove, the office where he pretended to be a businessman. All of it. Mine. And I'd let them think it was theirs. My phone sat on the desk next to Grace's reading glasses. I picked it up and dialed Edward Graham. He'd been my accountant for 30 years. If anyone was going to understand what I was about to do, it was Edward. He answered on the second ring. "Matthew, how was the baptism? Everything go okay?" "Edward," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I need you to cancel a check." Pause. "Which one?" "The big one. Riverside Events Center. $12,500. The silence on the other end lasted maybe 5 seconds. Felt like 5 minutes. "To Matthew," Edward said carefully. "That's the final payment. If that check doesn't clear, they can't serve the food. The bar shuts down. There are 150 people at that venue right now expecting—" "I know exactly what they're expecting," I said. "And I know exactly what's going to happen when that check bounces. Matthew, are you sure about this?" "Once I make this call to the bank, I'm sure." Another pause. I could hear him breathing, thinking it through. "That's not all," when I said. "I need you to freeze Amanda's credit cards, all of them, the ones linked to my accounts." "Matthew," his voice dropped. "Those are the only cards she has. If I freeze them, she won't be able to buy anything. Not groceries, not gas, nothing." "I know. This is war." I looked at Grace's photo on the desk. Us at Amanda's college graduation. Grace's arm around our daughter, both of them beaming, back when Amanda still looked at me with respect instead of shame. "Oh, no, Edward," I said quietly. "This is education." I heard him exhale. "All right. I'll make the calls. The check will be canceled within the hour. Credit cards frozen by end of business day. Thank you, Matthew." He paused. "I hope you know what you're doing." "So do I, Edward, so do I." I hung up and sat there for a moment in the quiet office. Then I got up, walked to the kitchen, and made myself a ham sandwich. White bread mustard, nothing fancy. I ate it, standing at the counter looking out the window at Grace's roses. The phone started buzzing around 6 o'clock. Amanda's name lit up the screen. Then Jason's. Then Amanda again. I took another bite of my sandwich and let it ring. By 7, I had 5 missed calls. By 8:12. By 9, I stopped counting. The voicemails piled up. I could see the notification number climbing. Didn't listen to a single one. At midnight, I checked one last time. 22 missed calls. 22 voicemails. I turned the phone face down on my nightstand, set my alarm for 5 a.m. I had trucks running routes tomorrow, business didn't stop, and got into bed. Grace's side was still empty. Always would be. I'd gotten used to that hollow feeling, that space where she used to be. But tonight, for the first time in months, I didn't lie awake, staring at the ceiling. I closed my eyes and slept straight through till morning. Sunday morning, 6 a.m. I woke to my alarm like always. No grogginess, no hesitation. Just the mechanical routine I'd followed for 40 years, feet on the floor bathroom kitchen. I made coffee, first the good stuff Grace used to buy from that place downtown, the one that roasted their own beans. Poured myself a bowl of oatmeal, added a little brown sugar and cinnamon the way she taught me. Set it all on the kitchen table next to the window, where I could see her roses catching the early light. The phone sat in the middle of the table, face down where I'd left it before bed. I knew what was waiting for me when I turned it over. Had known it since yesterday afternoon, when I'd watched those missed calls pile up like snow in a blizzard. But I'd slept on it, wanted to face it fresh with a clear head and a full night's rest behind me. I took a sip of coffee. Hot black, strong enough to strip paint. Then I reached out and flipped the phone over. The screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Notifications everywhere. Messages missed, calls, voicemails. The number in the little red bubble made me blink. 22 voicemails. I sat back in my chair, spooned some oatmeal into my mouth, and hit play on speaker. The first voice came through loud and sharp, cutting through the quiet kitchen like a knife. Heck, you selfish son of a, Jason's voice shaking with rage. Do you have any idea what you just did? Do you have any idea? I chewed my oatmeal, didn't flinch. The timestamp said 6:30 last night. Right about when the venue manager would have pulled him aside with the news. My investors were there. Important people, you destroyed everything. The message cut off. Apparently he'd run out of things to yell. Message 2 started immediately. Amanda's voice, but I barely recognized it. She was crying. Not delicate tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from somewhere deep. Daddy, please, people are laughing at us. Everyone saw. They all saw. I set down my spoon. Looked out at Grace's roses. Message 3. Jason again, 7:30. This isn't over. You can't just... We'll fix this. We'll make you fix this. You hear me? I took another sip of coffee. Between the messages, my mind filled in what I hadn't seen. What I didn't need to see because I knew exactly how it went down. The Riverside Events Center. All those people in their fancy clothes, champagne glasses in hand, waiting for the reception to start. The manager, Jeffrey. Something I'd signed the contract with him, pulling Jason aside with that look service people get when they have to deliver bad news. Sir, I'm sorry, but there's been an issue with the payment. Jason's face going white. That's impossible. The final check was declined. We've tried contacting the account holder, but, use this. Jason pulling out his wallet, hands probably shaking, trying card after card. Each one coming back declined. The catering staff starting to pack up the food. The bartender closing down the champagne fountain. Guests noticing. Whispers starting. That particular kind of whisper that spreads through a crowd like wildfire. Did you hear the payment bounced? All of it. Apparently, the father-in-law pulled the funding. How embarrassing. Message 10. Jason, 9:15. This isn't over. You can't just... The message ended mid-sentence like he'd gotten too angry to finish. Message 15, 10:30. Amanda again. Just sobbing. Couldn't make out any words at all, just the sound of someone whose world had just collapsed. I finished my oatmeal somewhere around message 15. Message 22 came in at 11:58 last night. Almost midnight. Amanda's voice again. Not even trying to speak this time. Just crying into the phone. The kind of crying that has no words, because there are no words left. Then silence. The voicemail system's automated voice, end of messages. I sat there in my quiet kitchen, Sunday morning light streaming through the window, coffee going lukewarm in my cup. Out back, Grace's roses swayed in the breeze. A cardinal landed on the fence post, bright red against the white pickets. I picked up the phone. Opened the voicemail app. All 22 messages listed there, one after another. Jason, Amanda, back and forth like a tennis match of desperation. My finger hovered over the first one for maybe half a second. Then I selected all, every single message, and I deleted them. One swipe, gone. I poured myself a third cup of coffee, seemed like a 3-cup kind of morning, and walked over to the mantel where Grace's picture sat. Our 25th anniversary. Her in that blue dress, me in my gray suit. Both of us smiling like we'd won the lottery. And I know what you'd say, honey, I said to her photo. You'd tell me forgiveness is divine. Turn the other cheek. All that Sunday school wisdom you used to live by. The cardinal outside started singing. Grace always loved cardinals. But sometimes, I continued, love means letting them fall. Letting them learn the hard way because the easy way didn't stick. I stood there another minute just looking at her. God, I missed her. Missed her wisdom, her kindness, her ability to see the good in people even when they didn't deserve it. But Grace wasn't here anymore. And the lesson Amanda needed to learn. She wasn't going to learn it from gentle words and second chances. I drained the last of my coffee, rinsed the cup in the sink, and looked at the clock. 6:45. I had routes to plan for Monday, trucks to schedule, a business to run, 42 vehicles, 5 locations, 3 counties worth of contracts. Hayes Sanitation didn't stop for family drama, but something in my gut told me this Sunday wasn't going to stay quiet for long. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when the pounding started, 10:30 Sunday morning. The sound was so loud it rattled the kitchen window. Not a knock, a demand. I set the coffee pot down, carefully wiped my hands on a dish towel, and walked to the front door. Through the peephole, I could see them both, Jason fist raised to pound again, and Amanda standing just behind him. Her mascara had run. His shirt was the same one from yesterday, wrinkled and stained. Neither of them had slept. I opened the door. Jason didn't wait for an invitation. He pushed past me into the living room, Amanda trailing behind with red, swollen eyes. What the hell were you thinking? Jason's voice cracked with rage. Do you have any idea what you... I know exactly what I did, I said calmly, closing the door. Amanda's voice broke. Dad, everyone was laughing at us. Everyone saw. I turned to her. Where were my friends yesterday, Amanda? Oh, that's right. There wasn't room for me. This is ridiculous. Jason stepped forward, jabbing a finger at me. You need to fix this. Call the venue. Pay them. I'm not fixing anything. You humiliated us in front of my business partners. I met his eyes. Your business partners, Jason, you don't have a business. His face went crimson. I let the first bomb drop, my voice even and measured. That house you're living in, it's mine. The deed has my name on it. Always has. Amanda's breath caught. But that was a wedding gift. I let you live there, I said. Past tense. The second bomb. That Lexus, $825 a month. From my account. Jason's face had gone from red to pale. The third bomb. The office downtown. My building. Your lease terminates Monday morning. You can't do this, Jason said, but his voice had lost its edge. You have 30 days to move out of the house. Amanda grabbed my arm. Dad, we have Mason, your grandson. I pulled away, gently but firmly. Mason deserves better parents than people who only know how to take. That's when Jason lunged. His hands grabbed the lapels of my cardigan, shoving me back against the wall. For a 72-year-old man, I should have been frightened. But I'd spent 40 years hauling garbage bins and managing crews. I'd broken up fights between workers twice his size. I didn't flinch. I just looked him in the eye. Get out of my house. My voice was quiet. Deadly quiet. Something in my tone must have registered, because Jason's hands loosened. He stepped back, chest-heaving, fists still clenched at his sides. Amanda was crying openly now. Jason, please, let's just go. He shook her off, backing toward the door, but keeping his eyes locked on mine. When he reached the threshold, he stopped. You're going to regret this, old man. The way he said it wasn't angry. It was calculated, cold, like he was making a promise rather than a threat. That tone, that icy certainty sent something dark crawling up my spine. They left. I heard the Lexus engine roar to life, tires squealing as Jason peeled out of my driveway. I walked to the window and watched until the car disappeared around the corner. My hands, I noticed, were steady, but that look in Jason's eyes, that wasn't the look of a man who was going to walk away. I picked up the phone and dialed Joseph Miller. Joe answered on the second ring. Matt, everything okay? No, I said, still watching the empty street. Jason just threatened me. I think we might have a problem. There was a pause. Then Joe's voice, careful. What kind of problem? I thought about Jason's hands on my collar. The way his voice had gone cold instead of hot. The look in his eyes, not rage, but something worse. Calculation. The kind that doesn't end with an apology, I said. Can you come over? Give me 20 minutes. I was making a fresh pot of coffee, my third of the day, when the knock came again. This one was different. Polite. 3 measured taps, the kind that said we're civilized people having a civilized conversation. I glanced at the clock on the microwave. 12:15. Joe wouldn't be here for another 5 minutes. Whoever this was, they'd timed it perfectly. Through the peephole, I saw them, Gerald and Patricia Bennett, dressed like they'd just come from church. Gerald in a charcoal suit with a red power tie. Patricia in a cream-colored dress with pearl earrings that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. Jason's parents. I opened the door. Matthew. Patricia's smile was warm and practiced. We need to talk. May we come in? I stepped aside without a word. They walked into my living room like they were touring a property. Patricia's eyes sweeping over the worn furniture, the outdated carpet, the modest TV on its stand. I could practically hear her mental appraisal, lower middle-class needs, updating limited resale value. They sat on the couch. I remained standing. So Jason called us. Gerald began, his voice smooth and reasonable. The boy is very upset. I imagine he is, I said. Patricia leaned forward, her expression concerned in that rehearsed way that real estate agents perfect. Matthew, this has gone too far. Think about Mason. That sweet little boy. I'm thinking about Mason, I said. He needs parents who understand consequences. Gerald shifted into what I recognized as his corporate negotiation voice. As one businessman to another, I understand the frustration here. One businessman to another, I interrupted. Gerald, what exactly do you do? He blinked, thrown off his script. I'm the regional sales director at PharmaCorp. Right. You're an employee. I own a business. We're not the same. His jaw tightened, but he forced the smile back. Be that as it may, we're family. We should be able to work this out like adults. Adults pay their own way, I said. Patricia tried a different angle, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. People are talking, Matthew. This makes you look bad, too. People like you, we're trying to help. I'd had enough of the performance. Gerald, I said, how much do you still owe on that BMW parked in my driveway? He stood abruptly. That's none of your... And the house, $650,000, wasn't it? How much do you still owe the bank? How dare you? I turned to Patricia. When was the last time you actually sold a house, Patricia? She stiffened. The market right now is very challenging. You're both drowning in debt. I said, my voice calm and factual. Living on credit cards, pretending to have money you don't have. That BMW leased. The designer handbag on your shoulder probably charged to a card that's already maxed out. Patricia's face flushed red. You have no right to. Jason had to learn those values somewhere. I continued. Now I know exactly where. Gerald moved toward the door, his corporate composure cracking. We're done here. Patricia, let's go. She stood smoothing her dress with shaking hands. At the door, she turned back to me, and for just a moment the mask slipped. I saw what was underneath, not concern, but wounded pride. "Don't expect us to help them," she said coldly. "This situation, you created it." "No," I said. "I just stopped enabling it." They left Patricia's heels clicking sharply on my front walkway. Through the window, I watched Gerald's hands tremble as he unlocked the BMW. Even from here, I could see him gripping the steering wheel, probably rehearsing all the things he wished he'd said. The car pulled away just as Joe's pickup turned onto my street. I opened the door for him before he even knocked. "Was that the Bennetts?" Joe asked, nodding toward the departing BMW. "Yeah. How'd that go?" "About as well as you'd expect," I said. "They came to play peacemaker, left when they realized they're just as broke as Jason." Joe followed me into the kitchen. I poured 2 cups of coffee and slid one across the counter to him. "So where does that leave things?" he asked. I sat down heavily at the table. "Jason's got no safety net now. No parents to bail him out. No money of his own. I've cut off everything." Meaning, I thought about the cold calculation in Jason's eyes when he'd made his threat. The way he'd gone quiet instead of loud. That was the part that worried me. "Meaning he's cornered," I said. "And I learned a long time ago Joe-cornered animals are the most dangerous kind." Joe set his coffee down carefully. "You think he's going to do something stupid? I think he's going to do something desperate." Monday morning, 5:30 a.m. I pulled into the Hayes Sanitation Depot, just as the first light was breaking over the eastern horizon. The parking lot was empty except for Raymond Clark's pickup. He always beat me in on Mondays to prep the route assignments. Inside, the office smelled like fresh coffee and diesel fuel. Raymond had the maintenance logs spread across the dispatch desk, a red pen in his hand. "Morning, boss," he said without looking up. "Truck 17's got a hydraulic leak. I'm pulling it from rotation." "Good call." I poured myself a cup of coffee and grabbed the clipboard for truck 23. "What about 23? "Brake pads, Jake's on it now." This was my routine. 40 years of 5:30 a.m. starts. Check the trucks, review the routes. Make sure 60 employees had the equipment they needed to do their jobs. Some people played golf in retirement. I preferred hydraulic fluid and route efficiency. By 7:45, 6 trucks had rolled out. Everything running like clockwork. My phone rang at 8:15. Edward Graham. I frowned. He knew Monday mornings were my busiest time. I answered. "Edward, what's wrong?" "To Matthew, we have a situation." His voice was tight-clipped. "Someone tried to access your accounts this morning." I set my coffee cup down carefully. "Who?" "On Jason Bennett. He showed up at First National the minute they opened at 8. I just got off the phone with the branch manager." Something cold settled in my chest. Desperate, I'd told Joe yesterday. I'd been exactly right. What did he try to do? Edward's words came fast. He brought documentation. Old papers, bank statements, account numbers. Told the manager you're 72 years old and experiencing cognitive decline. Said you're showing signs of confusion and he needs access to protect you. I closed my eyes. Through the depot's open bay door, I could hear the pneumatic hiss of an air compressor, the clang of tools, normal sounds. But nothing was normal anymore. Did he get anything? No. Susan Herrera, she's the branch manager, she flagged it immediately. Jason tried to withdraw cash, tried to add himself as an authorized user on your accounts, even asked about power of attorney paperwork. Can he do that legally? He tried, Edward said. But you're the primary account holder. They need your signature, your authorization, which is why Susan called me instead of processing anything. Matthew, this is escalating fast. I recommend closing those accounts today. This morning. Through the window, I watched Raymond directing Bobby to back Truck 9 into Bay 3. Monday morning. Business as usual. Except my son-in-law was at a bank right now trying to steal from me using forged concern about my mental health. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said. Raymond looked up when I grabbed my keys. Boss, everything okay. Family emergency. I need to handle something at the bank. His eyes narrowed slightly. Raymond had been with me for 15 years. He could read my tone. Want me to come along? No. Keep the roots running. I'll be back by lunch. He nodded once. We got it covered. I met Edward in the First National parking lot at 9 a.m. The lot was half full now, early customers, business owners making deposits. Normal people doing normal banking. Edward was waiting by his sedan briefcase in hand tie perfectly knotted, but his face was drawn. How bad is it? I asked. How bad enough that Susan agreed to open early for us. She's inside. The bank manager met us in a private office, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a kind face that currently looked very apologetic. Mr. Hayes, I'm so sorry about this morning, she began. I want you to know we followed every protocol. You did exactly right, I interrupted. Now I need you to do something else. Close every joint account I have with family members, all of them. She glanced at Edward, who nodded. We'll need new accounts. I continued. New account numbers, new passwords, new access codes. Jason Bennett gets nothing. Not his name on the signature cards, not his phone number on file. Nothing. Susan pulled up my accounts on her computer. That's going to be 4 checking accounts, 2 savings accounts, and 1 money market account. Close them all, open new ones, transfer everything. While she printed the paperwork, I pulled out my phone and dialed Gregory Marshall. It was early, but lawyers like Gregory kept early hours. He answered on the second ring. Matt, I was expecting your call. Edward texted me 20 minutes ago. Jason tried to steal from me. I know. And Matthew, this changes things. We need to get ahead of this. Meaning, and if Jason's claiming you're incompetent, we need documented proof that you're not. Before he finds a doctor willing to say otherwise. I looked down at the stack of forms Susan was laying out. Account closure authorizations, new signature cards, transfer requests. My handwriting was steady. My mind was clear. I was making rapid, calculated decisions to protect my assets. Does that sound like someone who's confused? What are you suggesting? I asked. A competency evaluation. Formal documented done by a licensed physician. I can have Dr. Carol Stevens see you tomorrow morning. 9:30 a.m. She's been doing cognitive assessments for 20 years. Memory tests, financial decision-making, understanding of complex situations. If you pass, when you pass, we have legal documentation proving Jason's claim is fraudulent. And if he tries this again, then we pursue criminal charges, attempted fraud, elder abuse. Depends how far he pushes it. I signed the last form and slid it across the desk to Susan. Set it up. I'll text you the address, Gregory said. Matthew, be careful. Jason's crossed a line here. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is attempted theft, and people who try once usually try again. We hung up. Susan handed me a folder with the new account numbers, new temporary checks, new access codes. Mr. Hayes, she said quietly, for what it's worth, you seem sharper than half the 50-year-olds I deal with. I hope you know that. Thank you. Edward walked me back to my truck. The sun was climbing higher now, the parking lot filling up with the mid-morning rush. You okay? Edward asked. I thought about that. I'm 72 years old. I've been running this business for 40 years. I manage payroll for 60 employees. I've negotiated contracts with 3 different cities. I built a company worth $8 million from 1 garbage truck and a dream. Does that sound like someone who's confused? Not even a little bit. Then we're going to prove it. I climbed into my truck and checked my phone. A text from Gregory was already waiting. Dr. Carol Stevens, 127 Medical Plaza Drive, Tuesday 9:30 a.m. Bring photo ID and list of current medications. Another text. This one from Amanda. Dad, please, we need to talk. This is getting out of control. I deleted it without reading it twice. On the drive back to the depot, I thought about Jason standing in that bank at 8 a.m. paperwork, in hand practice story ready, trying to convince a manager that I was losing my mind. The planning in that, the calculation. Joe had asked if Jason would do something stupid. This wasn't stupid. This was premeditated, methodical, which made it so much more dangerous. I pulled back into the depot at 10:30. Raymond had dispatched all the routes and was on the phone with a client. Bobby was under truck 17, fixing the hydraulic leak. Jake was test driving truck 23 after the brake work. Everything running perfectly. The business I'd built. The empire Jason thought he could steal with forged concern and fake paperwork. My phone buzzed. Gregory spoke with Dr. Stevens. She's aware of the urgency. Evaluation will be thorough. Bring your A game. I texted back, I'm 72, not senile. There's a difference. His response came immediately. Tomorrow we document that difference. Then we decide how hard to hit back. Tuesday morning, 9:30 a.m. I sat in a psychiatrist's office answering questions I never imagined I'd need to answer. At 72 years old, I was proving I wasn't crazy. Gregory had driven with me to the medical plaza moral support, he called it. Now he sat in the waiting room with outdated magazines while I filled out forms. Medical history, none. Current medications, none. Reason for visit, competency evaluation for legal documentation. Mr. Hayes, the nurse led me down a hallway to an office with diplomas on the walls, potted plants in the corners, soft blue paint. Doctor. Carol Stevens stood to shake my hand, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a firm grip. Mr. Hayes, I understand you need a cognitive competency assessment. My son-in-law is trying to have me declared incompetent so he can access my money. She sat down, clicked her pen. Then let's establish clearly that you're not. This will take about 2 hours. I'm going to test your memory, your reasoning ability, your understanding of complex situations. Answer honestly. There are no trick questions. I'm ready. Good. Let's start with basic cognition. Count backward from 100 by sevens. 100, 93, 86, 79, 72, 65, 58. I continued all the way to 0 without hesitation. She made a note. Now draw a clock showing 3:15. I drew the circle, placed all 12 numbers correctly positioned, both hands exactly right. Another note. Name the last 5 presidents in reverse order. I listed them without pausing. On Tell Me About Your Business. This one was easy. Hayes Sanitation Services. I started 40 years ago with 1 truck and a contract with the south side of town. Now I run 42 trucks. Service 3 cities, employ 60 people, and generate about $3 million in annual revenue. We handle residential pickup, commercial contracts, and special waste removal. Dr. Stevens typed steadily. That's quite detailed. Walk me through a typical decision you make in a week. Last Monday, I pulled truck 17 from rotation because of a hydraulic leak. Cost me $5,000 in repairs, but keeping a faulty truck on the road would risk worker safety and void our insurance. I authorized the repair, reassigned the route to truck 9, and had the driver back on schedule by Wednesday. Executive function intact, she murmured, still typing. Now let's talk about the situation with your daughter. I explained it all. The baptism, the rejection at the church door, canceling the check, cutting off the credit cards. So some people would call that retaliation, she said carefully. How would you respond? I'd call it education. My daughter needed to learn that respect can't be bought, that actions have consequences. Do you love your daughter? The question caught me off guard. For the first time, my voice wavered. More than anything. That's why I'm doing this. Dr. Stevens set down her pen and looked at me directly. Do you have any intention of harming yourself or others? No, ma'am. I intend to live long enough to see my grandson grow up right. She typed for another minute, reviewed her screen, then signed a form and stamped it with her notary seal. Mr. Hayes, you're sharper than most 40-year-olds I evaluate. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. Your judgment is appropriate. There is absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline, dementia, or impaired decision-making ability. She handed me the certificate official, dated notarized. Keep this safe. I have a feeling you're going to need it. I folded it carefully and put it in my wallet next to my driver's license and the photo of Grace I'd carried for 15 years. Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, Mr. Hayes. She stood. Whatever your son-in-law is planning, you're not defenseless. That document proves you're in full control of your faculties. Use it wisely. Gregory was on his phone in the waiting room when I walked out. He looked up, saw my face, and smiled. You passed. Wasn't even close. I showed him the certificate. He photographed it with his phone. I'm sending a copy to myself and Edward. If Jason tries anything else, we have proof his claims are fraudulent. That opens him up to elder abuse charges, attempted fraud, maybe even extortion, depending how far he pushes. We walked to my truck. The parking lot was filling up with mid-morning appointments. Normal people with normal medical issues, not people proving they weren't senile to protect themselves from their own families. I was unlocking the door when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't check the voicemail. I wish I hadn't. The voice was smooth, professional, practiced. Mr. Hayes, this is Dr. Preston Hale. I specialize in geriatric care. Your family has expressed some concerns about your health. I'll be stopping by soon to conduct an in-home assessment. Please don't be alarmed, this is purely precautionary. It's important we ensure you're safe and well cared for at your age. I stood there in the parking lot, phone pressed to my ear, and played it again. That false concern, that patronizing tone. Your family has expressed concerns. Jason had found his doctor. I looked down at the competency certificate in my wallet, then back at my phone. So, I said quietly. We might have a bigger problem than we thought. Wednesday morning, a process server knocked on my door. He was young, maybe 25, holding a clipboard and looking uncomfortable. Matthew Hayes, that's me. But you've been served. He handed me an envelope and left before I could respond. I closed the door and opened it at my kitchen table. Legal complaint. Jason Bennett versus Matthew Hayes. The words jumped out at me: elder abuse, mental incompetence, undue influence. Jason was suing me, asking the court to freeze my accounts and appoint him as my conservator. I drove straight to Gregory's office. He read the complaint, shook his head, and dropped it on his desk like it was contaminated. This is weak. Legally speaking, it's garbage. Can he win? Not a chance. Especially since you saw Dr. Stevens. We have documentation. He circled the court date with a red pen. 2 weeks from tomorrow, Friday morning. Judge Williams is fair, but no nonsense. He'll see through this fast. What do I do until then? Nothing. Let me handle it. Jason's backed himself into a corner here, filing a frivolous lawsuit that's going to cost him. 2 weeks later, Friday morning, I sat in a small courtroom at the county courthouse. The room smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Gregory sat beside me in his navy suit, briefcase, open documents organized. Across the aisle, Jason sat with a lawyer in a cheap suit who kept adjusting his tie nervously. Jason wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. We all stood. Be seated, let's move this quickly. Judge Williams opened the file. Mr. Bennett, your petition claims Mr. Hayes is mentally incompetent. Jason's lawyer stood, cleared his throat. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Hayes is 72 years old. He works in sanitation. He's made erratic financial decisions, canceling payments, cutting off family members. The judge looked at me. Mr. Hayes, you seem pretty lucid to me. I feel pretty lucid, Your Honor. Mr. Marshall, your response. Gregory stood calm and confident. Your Honor, My client is sharper than most people half his age. He slid Dr. Stevens's evaluation across the bench, dated 2 weeks ago, notarized thorough. Then bank records showing organized, careful financial management. The judge reviewed the documents for 30 seconds. That was all it took. So, Mr. Hayes, why did you cancel the check your daughter mentioned? I stood. My daughter told me I didn't belong at my grandson's baptism, Your Honor. After I'd paid for everything, I decided if she was ashamed of me, she could pay for her own life. The judge nodded. Sounds like a rational decision to me. She looked at Jason's lawyer. Petition denied. Mr. Hayes is clearly competent. Then she looked directly at Jason, and her voice went cold. Mr. Bennett, file one more frivolous lawsuit, and I'll hold you in contempt personally. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Jason mumbled. The gavel came down. Next case. Jason stood abruptly and left without looking back. Outside the courthouse, Gregory shook my hand. That went exactly as expected. You're legally protected now. Jason can't claim incompetence. We have court documentation proving otherwise. So it's over. This part is. He glanced toward the parking lot where Jason was climbing into a borrowed sedan. But Matthew, be careful. Men like Jason don't take losing well. I watched the car pull away. Jason's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Gregory headed back to his office. I walked to my truck alone. That's when Jason passed me. He didn't say a word. Just looked at me with those cold eyes, the same look from Sunday. Calculated. Empty. I stood there watching him drive away, and something twisted in my gut. This wasn't over. I climbed into my truck and dialed Joseph Miller. Joe, it's Matt. Can you keep an eye on my house tonight? I've got a bad feeling. What kind of bad feeling? I thought about Jason's eyes, about the voicemail from Dr. Hale, about how every legal avenue had just been closed off, the kind that says a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous kind. Joe was quiet for a moment. I'll swing by after dinner. Keep your doors locked. I will. I hung up and sat in the truck engine idling, watching the courthouse empty out. Lawyers in suits, families with custody battles, normal people with normal problems. I just won a legal victory. Judge Williams had called Jason's lawsuit garbage. I had documentation proving I was competent. So why did I feel like I'd just painted a target on my back? 3 weeks after the baptism, I thought things were finally settling down. I was wrong. Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock, I was reheating leftover meatloaf when someone knocked on my door. The knock was firm, insistent, not aggressive, just confident. I looked through the peephole. A man in an expensive coat I didn't recognize stood on my porch. Behind him, parked at the curb, was a black SUV with tinted windows. I opened the door cautiously. Can I help you? The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Hayes, Frank Moretti. We need to talk about Jason. He stepped forward. Not pushing, just expecting me to move aside. I did, keeping the door open, keeping my options available. I don't know who you are, I said. I'm the man your son-in-law owes money to. Through the open door, I saw 2 men in dark jackets climb out of the SUV. They didn't approach. Just stood there, visible. A message. Frank looked around my living room like he was appraising it. Nice place. Modest. I respect that. What's this about? He sat down on my couch without being invited. Jason owes me money. Started at $95,000. 20% interest per month. Compounds fast. Right now it's $108,000. The number hit me like a fist. I'd known Jason had debts, but not like this. Online poker. Frank continued conversationally. Sports betting. Your son-in-law has a problem, Mr. Hayes. And when people have problems they can't fix, I become their problem. He leaned forward, clasping his hands. Now I know you're a smart man, Matthew. I can call you Matthew, right? I didn't answer. A successful businessman. Sanitation pays well when you own the company. He smiled again. You've done very well for yourself. 8 million in assets. Impressive. My stomach turned. He'd researched me. Thoroughly. Jason's debt is Jason's problem, I said. Not mine. Frank's smile vanished. See, that's where you're wrong. He stood, stepping closer. I held my ground but felt my heart hammering. Now Jason can't pay. So I look at his assets. And his assets, the house, the car, the office, they're all actually your assets, aren't they? I said nothing. He already knew. Smart men protect their families, Matthew. Your daughter, your grandson. He let that hang in the air. I'd hate for anything unfortunate to happen. You understand what I'm saying? My voice came out tight. Are you threatening me? Frank pulled out a business card and set it on my coffee table. I'm having a conversation. 48 hours, Matthew. Think about Mason. He walked to the door, then paused. Those rose bushes out back are beautiful. Your wife planted them. Ice flooded my veins. He knew about Grace. He'd been in my yard. 48 hours, he repeated, and left. Through the window, I watched him and his men climb into the SUV. They drove away slowly, deliberately. No rush. Why would they rush? They knew where I lived. I locked the door with shaking hands. Both deadbolts. Then I stood there in my living room, breathing hard, realizing how deep I was in. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was something else entirely. I called Joseph first. My voice was unsteady. Joe, we've got a bigger problem. He heard the shake in my voice. What happened? A loan shark just threatened me in my living room. Jason owes him $108,000. I'm coming over right now. Bring your truck. Park in the driveway where I can see it. I hung up and called Gregory. I'm being extorted by a loan shark. His response was immediate and firm. Do not pay him, Matthew. Pay once and you become a target forever. They'll keep coming back. He gave me 48 hours. Document everything. If he contacts you again, we call the police. Loan sharking is illegal. Extortion is a felony. This guy Frank, he's counting on you being too scared to report him. He mentioned my grandson. He knows about my wife's roses. He's been in my yard, Greg. There was a pause. That's intimidation. Textbook. Matthew, lock your doors. Joseph's coming over. Yes. Good. I'm calling Detective Jackson. She handled some financial crimes cases for another client. If this escalates, we need law enforcement involved. I hung up and sat down at my kitchen table. The meatloaf was still spinning in the microwave, forgotten. Frank's business card sat on the coffee table like a ticking bomb. Frank Moretti, Private Lending Services. Private lending. That's what they called it now. My phone buzzed. Joseph 5 minutes away. Sit tight. I looked at Grace's photo on the wall. 25 years married. She'd never seen this side of life, the side where men in expensive coats showed up at your door with implied threats about your family. What would she say? Probably the same thing Gregory just did. Don't give them anything. Don't let them make you a victim. But what if they went after Amanda or Mason? That's when I understood what Frank was counting on. Not my fear, my love. Headlights swept across my front window. Joseph's pickup. He was out of the truck and at my door in seconds. I let him in, locked the door behind him. Tell me everything, he said. 48 hours passed. Frank's deadline. I didn't pay. Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock. I was reviewing next week's routes with Raymond when my phone rang. Jason. I'd ignored his last 5 calls. Hadn't spoken to him since the courthouse. But something made me answer. What? His voice came through ragged, barely controlled. They destroyed the car. Slow down. Who destroyed what car? My mother's Honda. I was borrowing it. Frank's people, they smashed it. I could hear traffic in the background. He was outside somewhere, probably standing next to the wreckage. All 4 windows. Jason said, his voice climbing. Tires slashed. They spray-painted the hood. Cold dread settled in my chest. What did they paint? Time's up, in red. Big letters across the whole hood. I heard real terror in his voice. Not anger, not manipulation. Terror. Dad, they're serious. They're going to hurt me. You made a deal with dangerous people, I said. That's on you. They know where Amanda works. His voice cracked. They know what time Mason gets dropped off at daycare. My blood went cold. Are you threatening my daughter? I'm not threatening anyone. They're threatening Dad. Please, they're going to... Going to what? His voice broke completely. Hurt us. Hurt them. I don't know. They said next time it won't just be a car. I heard him crying. Actually crying. In all the years I'd known Jason, I'd never heard that. $108,000, he said. You have that. Just pay them and this ends. If I pay once, they'll come back for more. That's what criminals do. So what am I supposed to do? Go to the police, tell them about Frank, get protection. I can't. These people have connections everywhere. Even in jail, they can Then I guess you need to figure it out yourself. I'm not paying your gambling debts. I hung up. My hand was shaking. Raymond was staring at me from across the dispatch desk. Boss, you okay? No, Raymond, I don't think I am. I sat down heavily in the office chair. Through the window, I could see Truck 12 backing into the wash bay. Bobby was running the pressure hose. Normal Friday afternoon. Routes wrapping up. Weekend approaching, but nothing felt normal. Raymond cleared his throat. You want to talk about it? Family trouble. The same family trouble that's had you checking the parking lot every 10 minutes this week. I looked at him. Raymond had been with me for 15 years. He was observant, loyal, and right now he was worried. It's complicated, I said. Complicated, like you need someone watching your back. Maybe, he nodded once. I'm here if you need me. Just say the word. Thanks, Raymond. My phone buzzed. A text from Jason. They know Mason's daycare schedule. They said his name. Mason. Please, Dad. I stared at that text for a long time. Frank's people knew where my grandson spent his days. They'd researched his routine. A 4-year-old boy. What kind of people did that? I thought about Gregory's advice, don't pay. Criminals always come back. I thought about Frank's cold smile. Smart men protect their families. I thought about Jason crying on the phone. Then I thought about Amanda. Working at the depot garage, surrounded by trucks and tools and men who respected her because she'd earned it. But if Frank's people showed up there, what would happen? My phone rang again. Amanda this time, I answered. Hey, sweetheart. Dad, Jason's freaking out. He called me about some car getting smashed. What's going on? It's nothing you need to worry about. Dad. Her voice was sharp. Don't lie to me. Jason said someone knows where I work, where Mason goes to daycare. What is he talking about? I closed my eyes. Jason owes money to some bad people. They're putting pressure on him. How bad? Bad enough that they vandalized a car today. Silence. Then, are we in danger? I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell her everything was fine. But I'd spent 3 weeks teaching her about consequences and honesty. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm handling it. How? By not giving them what they want. And what do they want? Money. $108,000. I heard her breath catch. Dad, if paying them keeps Mason safe, it won't. It'll just make us targets forever. So what do we do? You do nothing. I'm talking to the police. To Gregory. We're handling this the right way. Shook the right way. Her voice rose. Dad, these people smashed a car. What if next time it's not a car? That's what Jason had said. Word for word. I won't let anything happen to you or Mason, I said. You can't promise that. She was right. I couldn't. I have to go, she said. I need to think. She hung up. I sat there in my office at the depot, surrounded by maintenance schedules and road assignments, and 40 years of building something real. But right now, none of it mattered. Frank had moved his pieces. Now Amanda was scared. Jason was crying. And I was sitting here clinging to principles while my family was being threatened. That night I didn't sleep. Every car that passed my house made me check the window. Every sound was Frank's men coming back. I kept thinking about Frank's smile, Jason's terror. Amanda at the depot with no protection. I'd held my ground on principle. But what if that principle got my daughter hurt? What if it got Mason hurt? At 3 a.m. I still didn't have an answer. Monday morning, I was at home planning my day, intending to reach the depot by 10 when my phone rang. Raymond. He never called unless it was an emergency. What's wrong? His voice was tight, controlled, but I heard the tension underneath. Boss, you need to get here right now. Some guy just showed up. He scared Amanda bad. She's shaking. My heart dropped. I'm on my way. I made the 15-minute drive in 10, breaking every speed limit between my house and the depot. Raymond met me at the office door. She's in the break room. Amanda sat at the small table, hands trembling around a coffee cup she wasn't drinking. Her eyes were red. Mascara streaked her cheeks. I sat down beside her. Tell me what happened. She looked up at me and started crying harder. Take your time, I said, keeping my voice steady even though fury was building in my chest. A black SUV pulled up, she managed. Around 8:45, this man got out. He walked straight to me. What did he look like? Older, 50 maybe, expensive coat. He smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. Frank. I knew before she even finished. He knew my name, Dad. He said, "You must be Amanda, Jason's wife." She wiped her eyes with a paper towel. Then he said, "Nice-looking kid you've got." Mason, right? My hands clenched into fists under the table. I asked who he was. He said, "A friend of your husband's. He owes me money." Amanda's voice cracked. Then he touched my shoulder. Said, "Your dad's a rich man. Ask him nicely. He'll pay." Raymond stood by the door, arms crossed, jaw tight. I was in the office, saw him touch her, grabbed a wrench and walked out there. Told him to leave. What did he do? I asked. Laughed. Like it was funny. Then got back in his SUV and drove off. Real slow. No rush. I turned back to Amanda. Did he say anything else? She nodded, tears streaming. He said it would be a shame if something happened to Mason. That's when the rage hit me. Real rage. Not the cold calculation I'd used with Jason. Not the measured response I'd maintained through the lawsuit. This was different. This was someone threatening my grandson, my daughter. His name is Frank Moretti, I said. Jason owes him $108,000. Amanda's mouth fell open. $100,000 for what? Gambling, online poker, sports betting, for years, apparently. Her face crumpled. Jason told me those were business loans, investments. The lies ran so deep she hadn't even known. I pulled out my phone and called Gregory. Frank Moretti just threatened my daughter at her workplace, touched her, mentioned my grandson by name. This has gone too far. I'll file for a restraining order today, Gregory said immediately. Get Amanda to write down exactly what he said word for word. We'll need it for the filing. Do it. I hung up and looked at Raymond. She doesn't work alone anymore. Someone's with her at all times. Already planned on it, boss. I turned to Amanda. You're not going back to Jason. She looked at me surprised. What? Pack a bag. You and Mason are staying with me until this is over. Dad, I can't just… Yes, you can. Frank knows where you work. He probably knows where you live. You're not safe there. But Jason created this mess. He lied to you about the money. He put you and Mason in danger. You don't owe him anything. She sat there processing. 4 weeks ago, she'd told me I didn't belong at her son's baptism. Now she was sitting in my break room terrified, realizing everything her husband had told her was a lie. I trusted him, she whispered. I know. He said the money was for business, that we were building something. He was building debt, that's all. She put her face in her hands and cried. Not the angry tears from the church. Not the defensive tears from the confrontation at my house. These were different. These were the tears of someone whose world was falling apart. I put my hand on her shoulder. Come home, Amanda, both of you. We'll figure this out. She nodded, still crying. That night, Joseph came over. We sat in my kitchen, with cold coffee, the clock on the wall, ticking past 9 p.m. Amanda was upstairs in her old bedroom, Mason asleep in the portable crib I'd borrowed from Raymond. If you pay, Joseph said carefully, they'll own you forever. You'll never be free of them. I looked at Grace's photo on the wall. 25 years she'd been gone, but I still saw her in every corner of this house. Still heard her voice. Protect your family, Matthew. That's what matters. And if I don't pay, I asked. What happens to Amanda, to Mason? Joseph didn't answer. Neither of us had an answer. Gregory's filing a restraining order tomorrow, I said. For whatever that's worth. Paper doesn't stop men like Frank. I know. We sat in silence. Outside, a car passed. I found myself checking the window, same as I'd been doing for days. Every sound was a threat. Every shadow was Frank's men coming back. Raymond's got her back at work, I said. She's never alone. I've got motion lights installed around the house. New locks. Joe, I'm doing everything I can think of. I know you are. But it's not enough, is it? He looked at me with tired eyes. I don't know, Matt. I honestly don't know. At 3 a.m., I was still awake. Again. Amanda was upstairs under my roof. Mason was safe in his crib. But for how long Frank had made it clear he knew where they were. Knew their routines. Knew how to hurt them. And I still didn't have an answer. Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Every instinct told me not to answer. I should have listened. I was sitting at the kitchen table reviewing bills when it rang. I hesitated, then picked up. Hello. 2 seconds of silence, then Dad, Jason's voice. But different. Quieter. Too controlled. Jason, how did you get this number? I need to talk. Face to face. It's important. We have nothing to talk about. It's about Frank. I have a way to fix this. But I need your help. One last time. Every instinct in my body screamed, something's wrong. What way? I can't explain over the phone. Can I come by tomorrow morning, please? No. Dad, I'm trying to make this right. For Amanda, for Mason, for all of us. The way he said for Mason sent ice down my spine. Whatever you're planning, Jason, don't. His voice stayed eerily calm. I'm not planning anything. I just want to talk. Work this out like family. He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, unease crawling through my chest. I called Gregory immediately. Jason just called. Wants to meet tomorrow morning. Something's off. Don't meet him, especially not alone. I won't. But Greg, his voice. It wasn't angry, it was cold. That's when people are most dangerous, Gregory said. When they stop yelling and start planning. I hung up and called Joseph. Jason wants to meet tomorrow. I told him no, but you think he'll show up anyway? Yeah. I'll keep an eye out. Don't worry. That night I couldn't sit still. I paced the living room, checking windows, checking locks, everything secure. Amanda was upstairs with Mason, both asleep. The house was quiet, except for the old furnace kicking on and the clock ticking in the hallway. I sat down in front of Grace's photo on the mantel. I don't know what to do, Grace. I want to protect them, but... I trailed off, talking to a photograph like it could answer. But maybe that's what I needed. Just to say it out loud. To hear myself admit I was scared. I went to bed, but didn't sleep. Every car that passed made me check the window. Every sound was Jason coming back. Or Frank's men. Or something worse. Wednesday morning, I woke before dawn. Made coffee, took a shower, got dressed, ate toast at the kitchen table while reading yesterday's newspaper I'd forgotten to finish. Normal routine, normal Wednesday, nothing to worry about, except Jason's voice kept echoing in my head. That unnatural calm. I pulled out my wallet to check something, my driver's license maybe, or a receipt I needed, and saw the corner of Dr. Stevens's competency certificate tucked behind my insurance card. I'd forgotten it was there. Kept it just in case I needed to prove I was still sharp. Still thinking clearly. I stared at it for a moment, then slid my wallet back into my pocket. Upstairs, I heard Amanda moving around, getting Mason ready for the day. The sound of family. The sound of people I was trying to protect. I poured my second cup of coffee and opened the newspaper again, trying to focus on the headlines. Outside, 3 houses down, Joseph Miller sat in his pickup truck with a thermos and a clear view of my front door. He'd been there since 6 a.m. I didn't know that. I didn't know a lot of things that were about to happen. I was halfway through an article about city budget cuts when I heard it. Not a knock, a crash. Then another, the sound of wood splintering. Someone was kicking in my front door. The door wasn't going to hold. I knew that. And I knew who was on the other side. But before I tell you what Jason brought with him that morning, before I reveal his plan, I need your prediction. Comment below. What do you think he was trying to do? I want to know you're still here. Quick heads up, the story ahead contains fictionalized elements. It may not be completely factual. If that's not for you, feel free to stop now. But if you're ready, here's what happened next. 4 men burst through my shattered front door. I had maybe 3 seconds to react. I grabbed my phone. The coffee cup was still in my other hand when they came through. It hit the floor, ceramic exploding across the tile. 4 men, Jason, a man in a white coat, and 2 men in medical scrubs. My phone was on the counter. I snatched it, fumbled with the screen, and hit record video. My hands were shaking, but I got it. Jason saw me immediately and started yelling. He's having an episode, paranoid delusions. We need to help him. I held the phone up, speaking directly into the camera. My name is Matthew Hayes. I am 72 years old. I am completely lucid. These men are breaking into my home. The man in the white coat stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of false calm. Mr. Hayes, please stay calm. Your family is very worried about you. I don't know you. I backed toward the living room. Get out of my house. The 2 men in scrubs moved toward me, arms out like they were approaching a frightened animal. Don't touch me, this is illegal. They grabbed me anyway. 1 on each arm, strong grips, professional holds. I fought. 72 years old or not, I wasn't going quietly. Just let go of me. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor, landing face up. Still recording. I could see the red dot in the corner of the screen. I shouted toward it. I am being held against my will. Someone call 911. The man in the white coat, Dr. Hale. I realized the voice from the voicemail, opened a medical bag and pulled out a syringe. Mr. Hayes, this will help you calm down. Just a mild sedative to help you relax. I saw that needle and real panic hit me. No, get that away from me. I thrashed harder, but I was 72, and they were younger, stronger. The orderlies held me tight. Jason stepped closer. Just hold him. We need to sedate him before... A truck screeched to a halt outside. Joseph. He'd heard everything. Then from a distance, growing louder sirens. Everyone froze. Jason's face went white. No, 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 no. Dr. Hale's calm mask shattered. We need to leave. Now. The orderlies released me. I staggered, caught myself on the back of the couch, gasping for air. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken doorway. Police, everyone step outside with your hands up. 4 officers poured through the door, weapons drawn. On the ground, hands behind your head now. All 4 men hit the floor. The sound of handcuffs clicking echoed through my living room. Jason was shouting something. His face pressed against my carpet, but I couldn't hear over the blood pounding in my ears. An officer approached me, holstering her weapon. Sir, are you injured? I looked down at my arms. Bruises already forming where the orderlies had grabbed me. My chest hurt from fighting, but I was standing. I was breathing. I was here. My phone, I managed. It's recording everything. The officer picked it up from the floor. The red dot was still there. Still recording. She stopped the video and scrubbed back to the beginning. I watched her expression change as she watched the screen. Watched me identify myself. Watched them grab me. Watched Dr. Hale pull out the syringe. She looked at her partner. We need to bag this as evidence. Jason, face down on my floor in handcuffs, was still trying to talk. You don't understand. He's not well. We were trying to help. Save it for the station. The officer cut him off. She turned to her partner. Read them their rights. Joseph burst through the door, eyes wild. Matthew, are you... I'm okay. I said, though my voice was shaking so badly I barely recognized it. You called them. I heard the door break. Called immediately. He looked at the 4 men being hauled to their feet. Jesus, Matt. If I'd been 5 minutes later, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Dr. Hale was speaking now, his voice measured and professional, even in handcuffs. Officers, I'm a licensed physician conducting a psychiatric evaluation. This is all a misunderstanding. We'll sort it out at the station, another officer said flatly. They started moving the 4 men toward the door. Jason looked back at me over his shoulder, and the hatred in his eyes was pure and absolute. What? You set me up! He screamed as they dragged him out. This was a trap. I said nothing. Just watched them load him into the back of a patrol car. The officer who'd found my phone turned to me. Mr. Hayes, we're going to need you to come to the station to give a statement. That video is crucial evidence. I nodded, mute. Can you drive yourself, or do you need a ride? I looked at my shattered door, the broken coffee cup, the marks on the floor where they'd held me down. My hands were still trembling. I'll take him, Joseph said, his hand on my shoulder. The officer nodded. Come down as soon as you're ready. Ask for Detective Jackson. She'll be handling the case. They left, taking the 4 men with them. The sirens faded into the distance, and suddenly my house was quiet again, just me and Joseph standing in the wreckage of my living room. You saved my life, I said. He didn't answer, just pulled me into a hug, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I let myself shake. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. I sat in a small room, with a metal table and a recording device telling my story from the beginning. Detective Jackson, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a notepad, listened without interrupting. Gregory sat beside me there for legal support, but mostly silent. Mr. Hayes, I need you to walk me through everything, she said. Start from the beginning. So I did. The baptism. Amanda telling me I didn't belong. Canceling the check. Watching the reception collapse from 30 people away. The bank fraud attempt. The frivolous lawsuit. Judge Williams dismissing it in under 5 minutes. Frank Moretti showing up at my house. The threats. The destroyed car. Frank confronting Amanda at the depot. Jason's eerily calm phone call yesterday. The setup, and then this morning. The door breaking. 4 men. The syringe. Joseph's truck screeching to a halt. The sirens. Detective Jackson typed steadily throughout. When I finished, she turned her laptop toward me. "Let's watch the video." There I was on the screen. Coffee cup falling, grabbing my phone, speaking clearly into the camera. "My name is Matthew Hayes. I am 72 years old. I am completely lucid." Jason yelling about delusions. Dr. Hale's fake calm. The orderlies grabbing me. The syringe. My voice shouting toward the camera. "I am being held against my will." Detective Jackson stopped the video. "This is extremely serious. Unlawful restraint, assault, conspiracy to commit kidnapping. With this evidence, Jason Bennett is looking at 5 to 7 years minimum." "What about the fake doctor?" Mo Gregory asked. "We're verifying Preston Hale's credentials now. If he's unlicensed, we add fraud and impersonating a physician. The two orderlies, Marcus Webb and Gerald Stone, are cooperating. They claim they thought it was a legitimate psychiatric transport." "And Frank Moretti?" I asked. Detective Jackson's expression hardened. "Tell me everything about him." I explained the debt, the threats to my family, the car vandalism. Frank mentioning Mason by name at the depot. She wrote it all down. "We'll investigate him independently. Loan sharking, extortion, witness intimidation. If we can build a case, we'll pursue charges." The statement took over 2 hours. Every detail documented, every threat recorded. When we finally finished, it was 6:30 in the evening. I stood exhausted. My arms ached where the orderlies had grabbed me. My chest hurt from adrenaline that still hadn't fully left my system. Detective Jackson stood and shook my hand. "Mr. Hayes, you're very fortunate your friend was watching your house. That video saved your life." "I know." Gregory and I walked out to the waiting area. That's when I saw her. Amanda sat in a plastic chair, Mason asleep in his car seat beside her. Her makeup was streaked. Her eyes were swollen. She looked destroyed. She stood when she saw me. "Dad, let's talk over there," I said, nodding toward a quieter corner. She picked up Mason's car seat and followed. I'm sorry," she said immediately, tears starting again. "About everything, the church, Jason, all of it. I didn't know he was going to—" Her voice broke. "I swear I didn't know." "But you knew what kind of man he was, Amanda. You just didn't want to see it." She nodded, crying harder. I pulled an envelope from my jacket. Gregory had prepared it this afternoon, while I gave my statement and handed it to her. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, an updated will. A trust for Mason with me as trustee until he turned 25. Amanda named as backup trustee. She read it confused. "I don't understand." "What about me?" "Oh, you're in it. As Mason's guardian. The money is for him, not you." I explained the terms clearly. The house 30 days to decide. Stay and pay $2,200 a month in rent or move out. A job offer, Hayes Sanitation. $16 an hour. Starts Friday at 5:45 a.m. No credit cards? No handouts? Show up for work, or you're completely on your own. "Dad, I can't do manual labor. I have a child." "Then figure something else out." "Where am I supposed to go tonight?" I stood up, preparing to leave. "That's not my problem anymore, Amanda. You made your choices a month ago at that church. Dad, please, take the offer or don't. Your call." I walked toward the exit. Gregory followed. Behind me, I heard Amanda crying. Heard Mason starting to wake up, fussing. I didn't turn around. In Gregory's car, my hands were still shaking from leftover adrenaline. "Don't you think she'll show up Friday?" he asked. I looked back at the police station through the side mirror. Amanda was still there, holding Mason's car seat, nowhere to go. Everything she'd built on Jason's lies had collapsed. "I honestly don't know," I said. "But I gave her a chance. That's more than she gave me." Gregory pulled out of the parking lot. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Tough love. Grace would have done the same, maybe. Grace had always been tougher than me when it came to teaching hard lessons. What happens now, I asked. Now Jason and the others get arraigned. Probably tomorrow or Friday. They'll be held without bail. Attempted kidnapping is serious. You'll need to testify eventually, but the video does most of the work. And Frank. Detective Jackson will investigate. If she finds enough evidence, she'll bring charges. But men like Frank are careful. He might have covered his tracks. We drove in silence for a few blocks. And Greg, I said quietly. What if Amanda doesn't show up Friday? Then she doesn't. You gave her options. What she does with them is her choice. I thought about that. About Amanda sitting in that police station waiting area with no money, no husband, no friends who'd help anymore. About Mason sleeping peacefully, unaware that his whole world had just imploded. She's going to show up, Gregory said. She has to. She's got nowhere else to go. Maybe. But I wasn't sure. Amanda had spent years making bad choices. One more wouldn't surprise me. Gregory dropped me off at home. The temporary door was installed, industrial-looking but secure. Joseph had cleaned up the broken coffee cup and swept the floor. Inside the house felt different, quieter, emptier. I sat down on the couch and just existed. Too tired to think. Too wired to sleep. My phone buzzed. Joseph, you okay? I texted back to fine okay. His response, fair point. Want company. Tomorrow. Tonight I just need quiet. Call if you need anything. I set the phone down and stared at Grace's photo on the mantel. I gave her a chance, I said out loud to the empty room. Just like you would have wanted. Now it's up to her. Grace smiled back at me from the photograph, frozen at 57, forever young, forever certain that I'd do the right thing. I hoped I had. Friday morning, 5:15 a.m. I stood in the dark depot office looking out at the empty parking lot through the window. I'd made coffee in the break room without turning on the lights. Didn't want anyone to know I was here this early. Didn't want Amanda to think I was waiting for her. But I was. I'd told her 5:45. I hadn't expected her to show at all. The lot was empty except for my truck and Raymond's pickup. The overhead lights cast yellow pools across the cracked asphalt. Cold morning. Indiana autumn settling in. 5:30, still empty. I sipped my coffee and told myself it didn't matter. She'd made her choice. If she didn't show, that was on her. Raymond arrived, saw me standing at the window in the dark, and gave me a look that said everything. We both knew what an empty parking lot at 5:45 would mean. 5:40, still nothing. I checked my watch. 5:41. 42. Then headlights swept into the lot. An old Honda Christine's car. I recognized the dent in the front bumper, pulled into a spot near the office. The engine cut off. For a moment, nothing happened. Just the car sitting there in the yellow light. Then the driver's door opened. Amanda climbed out slowly, like every movement hurt. She opened the back door and lifted Mason's car seat out. He was still asleep, wrapped in a blanket. She was wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. Completely wrong for garage work. Expensive. Impractical. But she was here. Raymond was already outside checking his watch as she approached. I couldn't hear them through the glass, but I watched the body language. Raymond pointed at his watch, 5:42, 3 minutes early, but his gesture said she needed to be earlier. Amanda said something defensive, gesturing toward Mason's car seat. Raymond pointed at the baby. Amanda's face fell. She hadn't solved the childcare problem. Raymond walked to his truck, pulled out a broom and a mop, and handed them to her. Amanda stared at them like they were alien objects, tools she'd never held in her life. Raymond pointed toward the shop bay. Your assignment, then turned and walked away without another word. Amanda stood alone in the parking lot, holding a broom and mop, a car seat at her feet, with a sleeping baby inside. For a long moment, she didn't move, just stood there under the yellow lights looking down at the cleaning supplies. Then she glanced toward the office window, saw my silhouette. I didn't wave, didn't move, didn't acknowledge her. Just stood there watching. She took a deep breath. I saw her shoulders rise and fall, picked up the broom and mop, grabbed Mason's car seat, and walked toward the shop. 6:30 a.m. I watched her through the shop bay windows. She was sweeping the concrete floor, but her technique was all wrong. Short, choppy strokes. She'd sweep the same area 3 times and still miss half the debris. Raymond walked past, once watched for 10 seconds, then kept walking without correcting her. She'd figure it out, or she wouldn't. 8 a.m. The cashmere sweater had a black grease stain across the front. She'd brushed against truck 17 while carrying a trash bag. She stared at the stain for a full minute, then kept working. 9 a.m. bathroom duty. She went in with a bucket and cleaning supplies. Came out 15 minutes later looking pale. Stood outside the men's bathroom for a moment, hand over her mouth, composing herself. Then went back in to finish. 10:30 a.m., carrying trash bags to the dumpster behind the building. I watched from my office window as she tried to heave a bag over the rim. Too heavy. She had to drag it up the side. When she pulled it over her hands, caught on the sharp metal edge of the dumpster. She jerked back, looking down at her palms. Blood. She stood there for a moment, staring at her bleeding hands. Then she pulled out paper towels from her pocket, wrapped them around her palms, and went back for another bag. 11 a.m. Jake and Bobby walked past her in the shop. She looked up, maybe expecting a greeting. They kept walking, didn't acknowledge her, didn't say a word. I heard Bobby mutter to Jake as they passed my office. "Boss's daughter. Give her till Monday and she'll quit." "Sure, I'm taking Tuesday." They laughed. Lunch. Noon. Amanda sat in Christine's Honda with the door open, eating what looked like a peanut butter sandwich. Mason was awake now, fussing in his car seat. She fed him a bottle while eating her sandwich one-handed. Her wrapped hands made everything clumsy. She wasn't crying, but she looked hollow, exhausted, like someone who'd realized exactly how far they'd fallen. 2 p.m. Back to sweeping. Her technique had improved, slightly wider strokes, more efficient, but she was moving slower now. Limping. The work boots she'd borrowed were giving her blisters. 3:30 p.m., end of shift. She walked to the Honda like an old woman, shoulders hunched, hands wrapped in paper towels that were spotted with blood. The cashmere sweater was ruined grease dirt and what looked like bathroom cleaner bleach spots. She lifted Mason's car seat into the back, then stood by the driver's door for a moment. Looked back at the office window one last time. I was standing there. Our eyes met through the glass. Neither of us waved. She got in, started the car, drove away. Monday morning, 5:30 a.m., I was at the window again. The Honda pulled in at 5:28. Amanda got out. With Mason walked to the shop and started sweeping before Raymond even arrived. Her hands were bandaged, now actual gauze, not paper towels. The cashmere sweater was gone. She wore an old t-shirt and jeans. Tuesday, 5:25 a.m. She was there. Wednesday, 5:15 a.m., earlier than me. I watched her hands through the week. Bloody knuckles under bandages. Watched her cry in the car during lunch breaks while Mason slept. Watched her scrub floors in that borrowed t-shirt until it was as ruined as the cashmere had been, then show up the next day in a different borrowed shirt. Jake and Bobby stopped making bets by Tuesday. By Wednesday, Bobby handed her a bottle of water without being asked. Raymond never went easy on her. Gave her the worst jobs. Bathroom duty every day. Dumpster runs. Degreasing engine parts. Cleaning out Truck 9's cab after someone spilled an entire coffee inside. And I never helped. Not once. I watched from my office. Watched her struggle. Watched her hands bleed. Watched her cry. Watched her keep showing up. Because she needed to learn what I'd known for 40 years. Money isn't given. It's earned. And so is respect. Week 3. Tuesday morning. I watched through the office window as my daughter nearly quit. Amanda had been promoted, if you could call it that, from sweeping floors to answering the depot phone. Raymond had given her a clipboard, a headset, and a chair at the dispatch desk. She took service calls, scheduled pickups, and tried to sound professional when elderly homeowners complained about missed routes. She was terrible at it. Tuesday, 10:15 in the morning, the phone rang. I watched Amanda pick it up, her shoulders already tense. Hayes Sanitation. This is Amanda. How can I help you? I couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but I saw her face change. The smile dropped. Her hand gripped the edge of the desk. I'm so sorry, sir. Let me check our schedule. The voice got louder. Even from the office, I could hear the sharp edge of anger cutting through the line. Amanda pulled up the route log on the ancient desktop computer Raymond had set up for dispatch. Her hands shook as she scrolled. Sir, it looks like we're scheduled for pickup tomorrow morning at 6:30. The voice exploded. I saw Amanda flinch. I understand you're upset, sir. I'm very sorry. He wasn't listening. I could see tears forming in her eyes. Sir, please! The voice kept hammering. Amanda's breath hitched. She set the clipboard down, covered her mouth with one hand. I'll have my supervisor call you back, she whispered, and hung up. She sat there for a moment, staring at the phone. Then she stood up, walked toward the restroom, and I knew she was about to cry. I didn't move. I stayed in the office, watching. Raymond had been loading trash bags into truck 17. He saw Amanda walk past him, saw the look on her face, and paused. 10 minutes later, the man from the phone call showed up in person. He drove a silver Lexus, newer than the one Jason used to lease, and parked it sideways across 2 spots in the depot lot. He got out, slammed the door, and marched toward the dispatch window. Amanda had just come back from the restroom. Her eyes were red, but she'd pulled herself together. The man started yelling the moment he saw her. You people are incompetent. I've been waiting 2 months for consistent service, and every time I call, I get some little girl who doesn't know what she's doing. Amanda stood frozen. I pay good money for this service, and I'm tired of being treated like garbage. You hear me? I want my money back, and I want to speak to whoever's in charge. Raymond appeared behind Amanda. He'd heard the shouting from across the lot. I'm the operations manager. Raymond said, his voice flat. What's the problem? The man turned his anger on Raymond. Your dispatcher here doesn't know how to do her job. I've been calling for weeks. You're 2 months behind on payment, Raymond said. We sent 3 invoices. You ignored all of them. The man's face went red. That's not the point. The point, Raymond interrupted, is that you don't pay your bills, you yell at my staff, and you think you can drive onto my property and make demands. The man jabbed a finger at Amanda. She's useless. You need to fire her and hire someone who knows what they're doing. Raymond stepped between the man and Amanda. His voice didn't rise, but it got colder. Not anymore. We don't do business with people who disrespect our staff. Your account is closed. You've got 48 hours to find another company. Now get off my property. The man stared at him, stunned. You can't do that. I just did. The man sputtered. Looked at Amanda, looked back at Raymond, then turned and stormed back to his Lexus. He peeled out of the lot, tires screeching. Raymond turned to Amanda. You okay? She nodded, but she was shaking. Good, Raymond said. Next time someone yells at you like that, you come get me. Understand? Yes, sir. Raymond walked back to truck 17. Amanda stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty parking space where the Lexus had been. For the first time since she'd started working at Hayes Sanitation, someone had stood up for her. The next morning, Amanda arrived at 5:25. Jake was already there, leaning against truck 9 with his coffee. Morning, Amanda, he said. Not boss's daughter. Not the new girl. Just Amanda. She looked at him surprised, then nodded. Morning, Jake. Bobby gave her a thumbs up from across the lot. Something had shifted. Month 2 changed everything. Amanda stopped answering phones. Raymond pulled her off dispatch and put her back on the trucks, not to sweep, but to ride along and learn the routes. She spent 2 weeks shadowing Raymond. She learned how to check hydraulic lines, how to spot a truck with brake trouble, how to talk to customers who'd been with Hayes Sanitation for 30 years. She started dressing differently. The designer jeans disappeared. She wore cargo pants, steel-toed boots, and a Hayes Sanitation jacket Raymond had given her from the supply closet. One Thursday morning, I watched her crouch beside truck 11 with Raymond pointing at a leaking fluid line. Raymond nodded, handed her a wrench, and let her tighten the fittings herself. By the end of month 2, Amanda knew every route, every customer, and every truck in the fleet. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone with a difficult customer, a woman who'd been complaining about late pickups for years. Amanda didn't flinch. She listened, asked questions, offered solutions, and scheduled a supervisor visit. When she hung up, Raymond walked past her desk. "Nice work," he said. Amanda looked up surprised. "Thanks." I stood in the office doorway, watching my daughter become the person she should have been all along. She wasn't pretending anymore. March. 3 months after Jason tried to take me. I drove to the county jail. I hadn't seen him since they loaded him into that patrol car. I sat in the parking lot for 5 minutes, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. The jail loomed ahead, gray concrete razor wire catching the morning sun, security cameras swiveling like mechanical vultures. Why am I here? The question kept circling. I could have mailed the papers. I could have had Gregory handle everything through lawyers and court clerks and notarized stamps. But some part of me, the part Grace used to call stubborn, needed to see this through in person. I thought about Grace for a moment. What would she say if she were sitting in the passenger seat right now? "You need to look him in the eye, Matthew. Not for him, for you." I got out of the truck and walked toward the entrance. The county jail was a low gray building surrounded by razor wire and security cameras. Families shuffled through the doors ahead of me, mothers with toddlers clutching stuffed animals, girlfriends in their Sunday best, trying to look hopeful old men who looked as tired as I felt. Inside, the air was thick with disinfectant and something else. Desperation, maybe. Or resignation. A guard at the front desk handed me a clipboard. "Fill this out. Print clearly." I filled in the blanks: name, relationship to inmate, reason for visit. When I got to the line that said relationship, I paused. What was Jason to me now, son-in-law, felt like a lie. I wrote family. The guard barely glanced at it. "Empty your pockets into the tray. Belt too if it's got a buckle." I put my wallet, keys, phone, and belt into the plastic bin. Walked through the metal detector. It beeped. The guard waved a handheld wand over me, found nothing, and waved me through. The waiting area smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Rows of plastic chairs bolted to the floor. A vending machine in the corner buzzed and flickered. I sat on a bench against the wall and watched the clock tick forward. A woman across from me bounced a toddler on her knee. The kid giggled, oblivious. The woman's eyes were red. 10 minutes later, another guard called my name. "Hayes, this way." He led me down a hallway lined with heavy doors. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. At the end, a room divided by thick glass panels. Telephones hung on both sides. A dozen other visitors sat in chairs, speaking quietly into receivers, some crying, some just staring. I took a seat at an empty partition and waited. The door on the other side opened. A guard led Jason in, orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front. He shuffled when he walked, like the cuffs were heavier than they looked. He'd gained weight, probably from the jail food and lack of movement, and his face was pale, like he hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. Dark circles under his eyes. Hair longer, unkempt. He looked defeated. The guard uncuffed him, pointed to the chair. Jason sat down slowly, like his body hurt. He picked up the phone on his side. I picked up mine. We stared at each other through the glass. Neither of us knew how to start. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Finally, Jason spoke. His voice was quiet, rough, like he hadn't used it much lately. "You came. I didn't think you would. I needed to see you," I said. "See this." Silence again. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Jason swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. "I'm sorry. For all of it. The baptism. Frank. Trying to take you. You were going to drug me, Jason. Lock me up somewhere and steal everything I'd built." He nodded, shame written across his face like a brand. "I was desperate. The people I owed money to, they were going to—" He stopped, shook his head. "That's not an excuse, I know that. So you decided to hurt me instead. Easier target. I thought if I could just get access to your accounts, pay Frank off, everything would go back to normal." His voice cracked. "I thought I could fix it." "Your life was never normal, Jason. It was built on lies. The fancy office you couldn't afford. The car you leased on my dime. The baptism reception you expected me to pay for without asking." Jason flinched with every word, but he didn't argue. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Slid it through the narrow slot beneath the glass. Jason picked it up slowly, like it might explode. He opened it. Divorce papers. Amanda's signature already on the line, black ink, firm and final. He stared at them for a long time. His hands shook slightly. "She's divorcing me," he said. Not a question. A statement of fact. "So she was done with you months ago. She just needs your signature to make it official." Jason looked up. His eyes were red. "How is she, Amanda?" "She's working. Every day. 5:45 in the morning she shows up at the depot, sweeps floors, answers phones, rides routes with Raymond, learning things you never taught her." "Like what?" "Like self-respect." He flinched again, harder this time. But he didn't argue. He picked up the pen the guard had left on the table, signed the papers without reading them, and pushed the envelope back through the slot. His hands were still shaking. "What about Mason?" Jason asked. His voice cracked completely now. "How's my son?" "He's fine, happy, healthy. He doesn't ask about you." Jason's face crumpled like wet paper. He pressed his palm against the glass, fingers spread wide like he was trying to reach through it. "Could you—" He stopped, cleared his throat, tried again. "When he's older, could you tell him about me? Not this. Not the jail part, but could you tell him I wasn't always this?" I looked at the hand pressed against the glass. Looked at the man behind it. "That'll be Amanda's choice," I said. "Not mine." Jason lowered his hand slowly. Nodded. "Yeah, okay." I stood up, ready to leave. Ready to hang up the phone and walk away and never come back. "Matthew, wait." I stopped, receiver still at my ear. "What?" Jason's eyes were wet now, tears running down his face. He didn't wipe them away. "I know this doesn't change anything," he said. "I know I don't deserve anything. But I need you to know something." "What?" "You were a better father to Amanda than I could ever be to Mason. You did right by her. Even when it hurt. Even when she hated you for it. You made her earn respect instead of giving it to her for free. That's what a real father does." I looked at him through the glass. Saw the man who'd tried to steal my life, my dignity, my freedom. Saw the wreckage of a person who'd gambled everything and lost. Saw someone who finally understood what he'd thrown away. "I know I did right," I said. I hung up the phone and walked out without looking back. The guard escorted me back through the hallway, through the waiting room, through security. He handed me my belt, my wallet, my keys, my phone. "Have a good day," he said, like I'd just visited a doctor's office instead of a jail. I walked outside into the sunlight. It felt different. Cleaner. Lighter. Like a weight I'd been carrying for months had finally lifted. I stood in the parking lot for a moment, breathing. Just breathing. Then I got in my truck and drove. I drove straight to Murphy's Diner. Joseph was already sitting in our usual booth, 2 cups of coffee waiting. He always knew when I needed him. "How'd it go?" he asked. I slid the signed divorce papers across the table. "It's done. All of it." Joseph nodded, stirred sugar into his coffee. He didn't ask for details. He didn't need to. That's what 40 years of friendship looks like, knowing when to speak and when to just sit. We sat in silence for a minute. Just 2 old men drinking bad coffee and watching the world go by outside the diner window. A school bus rolled past. A dog barked somewhere. Life kept moving. Joseph took a sip, set his cup down carefully. "You feel better?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "Ask me tomorrow." He smiled a little. "Fair enough." Another minute of silence. Comfortable this time. Then Joseph leaned back in his seat, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "Mason's birthday's coming up, you know. Kid's turning 1. You planning something?" I thought about it. Thought about Mason almost walking now, babbling in that language only babies understand, laughing when Amanda made funny faces at him. Thought about Amanda, who'd transformed from a woman who couldn't sweep a floor into someone Raymond trusted to check hydraulic lines. Thought about Grace and what she would have wanted. I smiled. For the first time in months, a real smile that reached my eyes. I've got an idea. 1 year later. Mason's first birthday. Not at some upscale venue. At a garage that smelled like motor oil, fresh coffee, and second chances. Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. I pulled into the Hayes Sanitation Depot with Joseph riding shotgun. The sun was already climbing, promising a hot June afternoon. "You sure about this?" Joseph asked, looking at the empty lot. "I'm sure," I said. We started setting up. Folding tables borrowed from Grace Community Church, the irony wasn't lost on me. Blue and yellow balloons tied to toolboxes and truck mirrors. Joseph fired up the old charcoal grill outside Bay 3, while I arranged chairs in a semicircle. Raymond showed up at 9, hauling a cooler full of ice and soda. "Need help, boss?" "Always," I said. By 2 o'clock, 40 people had arrived. Not 150 strangers in designer clothes. 40 real people who actually knew my name. The mechanics and their families. Kids running around the lot playing tag between the trucks. Longtime customers I'd serviced for decades, Mrs. Turner, who'd been with Hayes since Grace and I first opened. The Robinsons from 3 blocks over. Christine Myers, who'd stood by Amanda when everyone else walked away. No Jason's co-workers. No Amanda's fake friends. No one who cared more about appearances than people. Just real folks who showed up because they wanted to, not because they'd been invited to impress someone. At 2:15, Amanda pulled into the lot driving Christine's old Honda. She got out, opened the back door, and carefully lifted Mason from his car seat. In her other hand, a homemade birthday cake. The cake leaned slightly to the left. The frosting was uneven. Blue and yellow icing spelled out Mason 1 in wobbly letters. It was the most beautiful cake I'd ever seen. Amanda walked toward me, Mason on her hip. She wore jeans, not designer ones, and a Hayes Sanitation t-shirt Raymond had given her. Steel-toed boots, hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked like herself. Mason wore a regular baby outfit from Target. No designer labels, no tiny bow tie. Just a kid in comfortable clothes ready to smash some cake. "Hey, Dad," Amanda said, smiling. I reached out, took Mason from her arms. "Hey there, birthday boy. You're 1 whole year old today." Mason giggled, grabbed my nose with his chubby fist. I looked around at the depot, the trucks, the people, the balloons swaying in the breeze, and thought about last year. 150 strangers at a venue we couldn't afford. Today, 40 friends in a place we'd built with our own hands. Raymond walked up to Amanda, nodded at the cake. "That looks great." Amanda laughed. "It's terrible, but I tried." "That's what matters," Raymond said. At 2:30, after everyone had filled their plates with burgers and hot dogs and potato salad, Amanda set her plate down and stood up. She tapped her plastic fork against her cup. The sound was thin, nervous. The crowd quieted. 40 faces turned toward her. Amanda's hands shook. I'd like to say something. If that's okay. I nodded from across the circle. Amanda took a breath. Her voice cracked. 1 year ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. Tears started forming. I told my dad he wasn't welcome at my son's baptism. She wiped her eyes, kept going. I was ashamed of him. Ashamed that he worked with his hands instead of sitting in some fancy office. Her voice broke completely. Ashamed that he didn't fit into my fake, shallow world. She turned to Raymond. Raymond taught me how to run a sanitation route, how to deal with difficult customers with dignity. She looked at Jake. Jake taught me it's okay to ask for help, that everyone starts somewhere. She looked at Joseph. Joseph taught me how to laugh at myself, how to be human again. Then she turned to me, tears streaming down her face. But Dad taught me how to fix the most broken thing in my life, which was me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't good enough. The truth is, you were always good enough. I was the one who wasn't. She could barely speak now. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. I love you, Dad. The crowd erupted in applause. Several people wiped their eyes. Raymond used his shop rag to dab at his face. I stood up, walked across the circle, and opened my arms. Amanda stepped into them. We held each other tight, both of us crying now. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered against my shoulder. I know, sweetheart, I know. We pulled apart, both smiling through tears. And then Mason, who'd been sitting on Christine's lap, decided he'd had enough sitting. He pushed himself up on wobbly legs, took one shaky step, then another, then a third, heading straight for Amanda and me. The crowd gasped, went silent. Mason took one more step and fell forward into our arms. The depot exploded. His first steps. He just took his first steps. Everyone cheered. People clapped. Cameras came out. Raymond let out a loud whoop. Mason looked confused by all the noise, then decided it was hilarious and started laughing. We sang Happy Birthday. Mason demolished the cake with both hands, getting frosting in his hair, on his face, up his arms. Everyone laughed. Nobody cared about the mess. I handed Mason a toy wrench from the gift table. He immediately started banging it against his high chair tray, making vroom vroom noises. The kid was born for this business. As the sun set, golden light streamed through the open bay doors. People helped clean up, chatting and laughing. Amanda worked alongside Raymond and Jake like she'd always belonged there. Mason fell asleep on my chest, the toy wrench still clutched in his tiny fist. His breath was warm and steady against my shirt. Joseph walked over, hands in his pockets. You did good, Matthew. Still a long road ahead, I said. She'll make it. You taught her how. I kissed Mason's forehead, felt the rise and fall of his breathing. This is wealth, I thought. Not money, not status. Looking back on this whole story, I never thought I'd be the one to tell it. But if 72 years have taught me anything, it's this: respect can't be bought. It's earned through honest work, through showing up every day, through being willing to fail, to hurt, to rebuild yourself from nothing. Don't be like I almost became a man who let anger slam every door shut forever. But don't be like Amanda was either, someone who mistook appearance for substance, who valued what strangers thought more than what actually mattered. Money can't buy respect, but hard work that builds something money never can. Character, dignity, a life worth living. My daughter drives a garbage truck now. She's my best route supervisor. And when people ask her what she does, she doesn't hesitate anymore. She says, I work in waste management with my dad, and she says it with pride. That's worth more than all the fancy baptism venues in the world. You know, Grace used to tell me something when times got hard. She'd say, "Matthew, God doesn't waste our pain. He uses it to build something stronger." I didn't understand that for a long time, but watching Amanda rebuild herself, watching Mason take his first steps in that garage, I get it now. Family betrayal cuts deep, but if you're willing to do the work, even family betrayal can become the foundation for something real. Here's my opinion, and I've earned the right to say it. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the hardest work you'll ever do. Harder than running a business. Harder than raising a child. Harder than anything. But it's also the only thing that sets you free. I've heard a lot of grandpa stories in my life, stories about grudges that lasted decades, families torn apart over money or pride or old wounds that never healed. Those grandpa stories always end the same way, with regret. With funerals where people who should have been there stayed home, with children who never knew their grandparents because someone decided anger was more important than love. I almost became one of those grandpa stories, but I didn't. And neither did Amanda, because we both made a choice. If someone in your life throws you away like Amanda threw me, yes, set your boundaries. Yes, demand change. But maybe leave the door cracked open. You'd be surprised who walks through it when they finally hit bottom and realize what actually matters. And if you're the one who threw someone away, listen. It might not be too late. That door might still be open. But you have to do the work. You have to earn your way back in. Nobody's carrying you. Family betrayal is real. It hurts. It changes you. But it doesn't have to define you. Thanks for listening to an old man's story. Now I want to hear yours. Have you ever had to choose between holding on to anger or holding on to family? How did it turn out for you? Did you leave the door open or did you slam it shut? I really want to know. Drop a comment below and share your story. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story meant something to you, if it made you think or feel or remember someone you need to call, do me a favor. Share it. Send it to that person who needs to hear it. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story. Because these aren't just grandpa stories for entertainment. They're reminders. Reminders that it's never too late to become the person you should have been all along. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end. It means more than you know. Before you go, I need to tell you something important. The stories you'll hear on this channel moving forward contain fictionalized elements created for educational and reflective purposes. If that's not what you're looking for, I completely understand. Feel free to explore other content that suits you better. But if you're here for the lessons, for the truth buried in the storytelling, then welcome. I'm glad you're here. Until next time, work hard, love harder, and remember the door's always cracked open for those willing to walk through it.